Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Sue's Muse right here on Nightlife Exchange. So I think you know who this person is, but I'm going to read a couple of accolades before we get started. Broadway, welcome to the club. She Loves Me, for which she received a Tony, Drama Desk, and Outer Critics nod. Urban Cowboy, Dirty Blonde, Steel Magnolias, so many off-Broadway shows. Another one called Closer Than Ever, for which she received an Outer Critics nod. Several albums, amazing songwriter, multi-Mac and Bistro Award winner, and now she's running a four-show series called Then and Now over at the Green Room 42. We are so lucky to have her today and so lucky to have her in our community. Please welcome Sally Mays. Hi, Sally.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm
You look
terrific.
so
I'm
pretty
just so
today. Look at you.
glad that I got to see your show and so glad that you had the time to do this because I want everyone to sell out this last show that you're doing here and come back in the fall if you're going to book new dates. You know what I'm saying? So,
We'll see.
so I was just going to say, tell me how a gal from Livingston, Texas makes it up to the big city and has this career. Sally, what was the dream back in the day? How did you get here?
well, my father was a jazz musician in Texas, and after he had four kids, he realized that he had to actually make a living, so he became a superintendent of schools. But he always, from the time I was able to phonate, I was singing before I was really talking, and so I would stand in front of his guitar, and he'd sit there and he'd teach me to sing, and he'd go, don't sing it that way, sing it this way, and he'd teach me the right way to phrase it. So by the time I was five, I understood phrasing, I understood emotional content, and I had no fear. And so that was really, it was huge. And I didn't even realize how huge it was until I got up here and people go, you seem so at ease on stage. And I'm like, do I? This is just what I do, because I had that whole thing I did gigs from the time I was about 2 years old, and I would go and sing at all these local places, and it was a great education. And then I went to college and studied theater, and then I had a rock and roll band for a while, and then which is where the writing came in. And then I moved to New York because our label said, come stay on my couch and do a show.
Can you turn your volume up a little bit? I'm having a hard time, just so that everybody can hear what you're saying a
It
little
is
better.
up full blast. Do
Okay.
I
Yeah,
don't
just
have a
maybe get
microphone?
closer to your,
Okay, I'll get closer.
there you go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
better. Okay.
So what kind of music were you singing as a little kid? Was it an array of music? You mentioned phrasing and how you were taught, but what kind of music was it back in the day?
It was mostly like, Ella Fitzgerald and Edie Gourmet and Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett, because that's what my dad loved. But
Uh-huh.
on the radio, because I was in East Texas, I would hear all of these country stars, George Jones and Merle Haggard and Merle Travis and Roy Acuff and Patsy Cline, and then there was a lot of like pop on the radio, when you're a kid. And so I grew up listening to, Joni Mitchell and James Taylor and all those people. And so it was a very eclectic education because I love all kinds of music and I like to sing all kinds of music.
Well, this explains clearly to me why you can literally sing anything. I mean, even in the one show I saw in this four-show series called Stories, you did a little country, you did a little rock, you did a little R&B, you did a little theater music, you did comedy, you did everything. And for me, and you as a director, I'm sure that's the kind of show I want to see. I don't need someone with a pretty voice singing the same damn song six times. You know what I mean? So the array and the diversity. So let's go right to your show. You're doing this four-show series called Then and Now, and you started with the teaser, then you did jazz standards, then you did Stories, which is the one I saw, and the one I'm going to see on June 20th at the Green Room 42, Broadway, called The Great Big Voice. Tell me, I suspect it's in the name of the series, but tell me why you're doing this series and why now.
I was out after the pandemic. I started doing concerts again, and I was so happy to be working, and I would go to Florida and I would think standards, jazz. And so I would go through my files because, I've done so many different things over the years. And like you'll do an album or you'll do a show and you have like a set and you take your favorites out and you put them and you use them in your hodgepodges around the country when you're doing like just a Sally Mae sings, But all these charts are in my file cabinet and I'm pulling them out going, I forgot I had that. That's great. Oh my God, Mike Renzi. Oh my God, Billy Str, And so I'm noticing this. And so I took them out and started singing them. And then I would go to a college campus and sing in a theater department. And so I'd pull out all the Broadway. And then I would go to like, New Hope, and I'd pull out, my folk and my originals and the stories. And so I just realized that I've got this huge body of work that I don't really sing that much anymore, and some of it not in years. And I thought, I wonder if I can still sing it. So I just started like listening to the CDs that I sang them on or whatever. And yeah, I've only had to lower two things so far, so that's a point of pride. And I just started pulling stuff, and then I got this idea, and I went around and talked to a few club owners, and they would go, "No, I don't want to do that. Just do one show. I don't know if you can sell 4 shows." And I would go, "Okay, but that's not what I'm doing." And then I went to Ben Rimmelauer, and he went, "Let's make it an event.
I
Let's
know.
do it. It'll be great." And he has been so amazing, and I adore him.
Yeah.
And and I honestly, I said, Ben, I don't care if I make any money. I don't care if I get reviewed. I don't care if it leads to anything else. I'm doing this because I just want to sing this stuff. I just want
Yeah.
to sing my shit. And I really meant it. But what has started happening is kind of snowballing into this other stuff. And they fill up. I worry and worry because I think, oh, I've got to have at least, 50 people or they're not going to let me sing or so, and they would totally, but I just worry about it. And it has filled up every single time. And it just makes me so happy that people seem to want to see.
Well, it's a tribute to who you are and your reputation, but it's also your incredible voice. I mean, there's nothing your voice can't do. And I can't wait to see the Broadway show because the big spots of your voice are thrilling. I said this to Craig Rabano. That man's got this really yummy low, and then he's got
Mhm.
these sustaining high notes where the vibrato comes in at the very end, and it's like, and you as like are like the female version of that. There's nothing. I mean, I'd hear you sing the songbook if you would be willing to do that. But I I'm wanting to know a little bit about your process on your arrangements because you have some really cool arrangements. And I know that you originally worked with the beautiful Tex Arnold. How was it to work with him? What was your process? And how has it been transitioning working with the incomparable Ted Firth now?
Well, if I'm going to talk about arrangements, first I have to talk a little bit about Patrick Brady because he was my
Yes.
musical director for 21 years, and he's retired. And he retired from the business, and he moved down to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then he ended up at Shenandoah College teaching musical theater, Lucky Kids. And he was a big, huge part of this for me because he was my muse and I was his, and we would get in a room together and just come up with these crazy ideas. There may have been some pot smoking, um, and we would come up
I
with,
don't know anything about
I
that.
don't know anything about that, and we would like have these crazy ideas, and then we would make them happen. And he was such a brilliant arranger, and he was always like a big proponent of the stories. And so and so was I. And so I finally said, let's do an album that's just like stories, and let's not do Broadway stuff in it, except maybe like one or two. And he brought Hamlet, and I said, let's do that one. And then we just started adding pop songs. And so the whole album is really like songs that are not theater songs, and they're all stories. And so that's how that started. And then when he left, I'm going to Tex now. Tex and I taught together at Yale every summer for Irv Rabel for the conference there. And he just kind of very quietly, without any fuss, just kind of moved into the slot of being Sally's guy. And he learned all my stuff, and he would play for me up there. And then, because he lived in Riverdale and I'm up in Cortland Manor, the top of Westchester County. And so I would have an idea for an arrangement, and I'd go, Tex, I've got this idea. And he'd go, and so I'd go to his house. And so we ended up, we worked with singers sometimes, and we did acts, and we would do arrangements for them. But a lot of the times we would just do arrangements for us. And one time I mentioned, because he would sit there and he'd work on something and he'd go, do that thing you do. And I'd go, what are you talking about? Do that thing. And I'd go, he said, that's Sally Mae's thing where you just, and so I got what he meant, which was I always put a spin on things. I always like,
Yeah.
what if we did this? And what if we tried it? And he'll look at me and he would go, you can't do that. You can't musically do that. And I go, well, fix it where you can. And so we would do these arrangements. But because I said that I said, I have a lot to do with this too. And so what he started doing was he started putting my name on the arrangements, which just was the most wonderful thing he could have done for me.
Yeah.
He said, "You're a musician. You just need to learn some theory." And so there's a whole bunch of arrangements out there like that have my name on them now, Tex Arnold and Sally Mays. And I think that's so sweet. And then when I was working on basically the songwriting, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but there's more about Tex to be told. But Ted has always kind of been on the peripheral with me because he's a genius
He is a
and he can
genius.
play
I've
anything.
known him since his
And
20s. He's amazing.
well, yeah. And he's just the bomb. And so I would work with him sporadically, but he always had Brian Stokes Mitchell, or he had Melissa Errico, or he had Michael, or he had Marilyn. And so he was always booked. And so I just kind of stayed with Tex, who is who was amazing, you know. And so the transition is seamless because I have worked with him before and I adore him. And
Mhm.
he's so he shows up, and when he's there, every ounce of his focus is in that room. He it doesn't You never know if he had a bad day or if he didn't
Yeah.
get any
No,
sleep
he
or
is
any of that
music.
stuff.
That is a young man. He is just music. You look up music, Ted Firth's going to be there along with a couple other people I know, but he's just all about giving the support and love to the person that he's there to give music to. You know, he's
I don't know
amazing.
if he ever sleeps. He just
Yeah.
it's like amazing to me.
Yeah.
And he does such he, I can't wait for you to see Carolyn's show because it's like
Oh, I'm
the
doing the
arrangements
Julie
are,
Wilson thing.
I
So I'm
know
doing
you
the
are.
Julie Wilson thing tomorrow night. So I can't be at Carolyn's show, but I wanted to segue into that. You're known as a tough teacher, and rightfully so, and you should be. Like Julie Wilson, she was a very tough teacher, and I worked with her for years, and she was a mentor of mine. But are you taking on people that you want to work with, or are you hanging a shield to direct? What's the process there?
I direct if it's something I want to do, if it's
Hmm.
somebody I love, or
Hmm.
somebody that I really believe in, or somebody that I think I can help. You know, I will say yeah, and but I'm very ornery about it. You know, I I wanted to direct Carolyn's show because Carolyn doesn't really need a director. Carolyn is
We
a
all need
great
someone to be
writer.
an outside eye. Lena Katrakis, your good friend, comes in and fine tunes me because we need that second eye outside of ourselves to keep ourselves from our bad selves. So, yeah.
Yeah, we just have to kind of have somebody watch it. But I just kind of my job was just to kind of push her a little bit, and because she was hadn't done it in a while, and then she was a little nervous about it, I think. And
Mhm.
so and just push her and then help her shape it like with pattern and stuff. Um
It's a
and so
great collaboration of voice and topic. Like she's great with Rosemary Clooney material. So go see her show tomorrow night at
yeah,
54
yeah.
Below.
I think it's
Directed
sold
by
out.
Miss Mays. So I want to talk in the last few minutes that we have, I want to talk about your songwriting. Before we came on camera, I mentioned to you that in your show, you did a lot of originals in this story show. And every time you did a song and it ended and we applauded, I would look at the table I'm with and I'm like, oh my God, I have to get that song. And one in particular, somebody sent me an angel I thought was a country western hit. And to me, that's a telltale for a good song. When you think you're supposed to know a song,
Mm.
or you go to a Broadway show and you're whistling it on the way out, or you're kind of sort of singing it on the way out. It's the mark of a good song. All your songs in this show were like that. It's not that I didn't know you were a songwriter. I didn't know it was on the prolific level that you are. And it's stunning. It's just stunning. And I wanted to talk about your process in songwriting. Does a germ of an idea come into your head? Do you do the melody? Do you do the lyrics? What's your process for songwriting?
It just depends. I mean, I've done always, but like, somebody be talking and they'll say something and I'll go, oh, that's a good hook. And then I'll write the song, you know, um, you know, the song that I wrote with Michelle Browerman, we were having a late night text conversation, and she said, "I love you, my dear," and I said, "And I you," and we both
Oh,
went, oh, "That would be a great song." And so we
oh.
put a song called right there at like 3 in the morning. It was amazing, and so, but I also a lot of the songs that you heard the other night are from this show that I've been working on. It's a play with music called Contradiction of a Southern Soul, and that's the one that I'm taking out to do in different theaters because I want to go and do it and without eyes on it. I don't want it to be in New York too soon. I want to work on it a little
Right.
bit more. But it's a one-woman show. And when I started it, I went to everybody. I went to everybody. Sue and was like, would you write some songs for this show? Carol Hall, would you write some songs for this show? Well, I've got a whole trunk full of songs. You can look at those. And I was like, that's not what I'm doing. And, I had not been writing. I mean, I always write down ideas and I always write down little clever things, and I would write like a special material for stuff for people. And I wrote an opener for Jason Graw at the Bistro Awards and stuff like that, And I always kept my hand in, but I wasn't really like writing every day, which is what Carol Hall says you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so uh, when nobody wanted to write songs with me, I thought, well, okay, I'll do it myself. And so I sat down and, because the show is very personal and it's about my family and about my life, even though the names have been changed to protect the guilty. So I tell the stories of my life, basically. And so all of those songs came out of that. Whiskey Lullaby, which is the song about my dad being a child performer too, came from him telling me about that, because I thought it was just fascinating. And I said, give me images. I got to come up with something. I got to write about this. And he started telling me about, how they would make him take a nap in the afternoon, and then he'd have to go and he'd have to get on the bar, and he hated it, and they'd throw money at him and he wouldn't pick it up. And his daddy, he knew his daddy was going to take that money and drink, and so his memories were real dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with the idea of Whiskey Lullaby, and I just love it. I love it because it's rockabye your baby and the
Mm-hmm.
J&B for daddy. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and
Yeah.
so it's like really dark, but and then I put all the, like, in the bridge, I put in the little boy blue come play, so it's like all the little nursery rhymes are kind
Right.
of in the bridge, right? And you're under the bar stool fast asleep, and so that's where that came from. And usually I will get an idea and then I sit down and I am like hyper focused until I've written out at least a shell of it. And then I tweak, over and over again. And so it's,
Are you going to do an album of all your originals, or are you going to wait till the show is up and then maybe do an album of the show?
I probably will wait until I do the show, but I do want to do an album of originals because some of those songs, some of the songs I write are not in that show, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a whole like shit ton of stuff. It's
Yeah.
just, and I have like these books of lyrics that I'll go back and go, oh, I need to finish that, and during the pandemic, I was just blah, 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 writing,
Yeah.
writing, writing.
Yeah.
And so my issue is I don't really play anything, so I have to write with somebody.
Yeah.
And I wrote a lot of those songs with Tex, and I wrote a lot of those songs with Alex Rybeck, and then my friend Ethan Fine and Ron Abel. So whoever will sit down and do it with me. But for those songs in particular, because of the subject matter, because I grew up in Livingston, so it had to be country. And so I kept saying no, 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 too much, too much. And I would go in with a pretty good idea of what I wanted the melody line to be, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good because of having a
Yeah, I
pop band.
usually find the hook first, and then,
Yeah.
I have a little formula on how I work. I bring it to Gregory, I sing a germ, I sing in my phone all the time on the bus like this,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
any way I can secure it. So yeah, that's pretty
Well, you
cool.
just kind of have to like, and you have to be fierce about it,
Yeah,
because if you have an idea about how you think it should go, then don't let them take that away from you.
right.
Because it's
Let
your
them work
idea, it's
around
your
that idea.
song, and you have to go, no, this is how I want the melody to go. And then there are other times when I don't have a specific idea. There was a song I sang in the jazz show that is called New Song, and it's crazy. It's a crazy lyric. It's like a twisted lyric, like man, let's call me, just
Mhm.
crazy, crazy, crazy. And I wrote it after we had finished the show. And because Tex was kind of frustrated with me, I think, because he wanted to bring in his artistry. And I'm like, no, it has to sound like this. And so I gave him the lyric and I said, knock yourself out. And it is the hardest song I have ever learned in my life. It's so crazy because the lyrics crazy, but he made the melody crazy too. I'll send it to you so you can hear it.
I'd
It's
love to
really
hear
fun.
it. I would love to
And
hear it. I'd love to do it. That sounds like
oh
fun.
my God,
So
it's
listen,
great.
I'm going to bring up your little flyer here because it's adorable and it kind of shows everything then and now. And I want to ask you if you can tell us one piece of advice that you received from someone that was either personal or professional that really has stuck with you all these years as a singing professional.
Oh, well, I had somebody tell me one time, just tell the story. It's like you don't need to act or schmact or like
Yeah, Lena and I call it
really
schmacting.
schmacting. That's what we call
Schmacting,
it.
yeah.
And you just tell the story. And if you can focus on telling the story and it's your truth, and because I'm teaching kids now at University of Houston for a couple of months a year, and it's like watching them. It's like you just have to tell the story.
Yeah.
I don't need to see all that stuff. I don't need to see all that emoting because it doesn't matter. Just tell me the story, and that's going to be more valuable. And I am grateful that I have a voice that people seem to like, but that's not really what storytelling has to be. It just is another little part of
And
it,
I
you
would
know?
just add to that the story filtered through your energy, and you sing the song from that point of view, but the audience doesn't really have to know what your story is because they're going to filter it through their stuff. And that's the beauty
Exactly.
of what we do in cabaret, I think. So,
Well, when you know that you have them, it's when it's like, for example, somebody sent me an angel. I've had a lot of people ask me for that song. A lot of people ask me, and I can't give it to anybody yet until I do my show.
of course.
But that is a big compliment to me because it's very specific if you look at that lyric, and it is very clear that I'm singing about my husband and
Yeah.
my experience, and yet people hear it universal. And when you hear something universal, or you watch somebody and it becomes a universal thing for you because they can be going through whatever they're going through, and yours is a completely different experience of it, and
Yeah.
that's a wonderful thing. That's one of the best things about this, you
Yeah.
know.
All right, everybody. This is Sally Mays. Her next show is June 20th at Green Room 42. Go get your tickets right now because she was nearly sold out the last show. I will be there. I just got my ticket. And you could also learn more about her upcoming dates, about her CDs, about everything that she is on sallymays.net. And she's also on Wikipedia. I am so always so fascinated and impressed with me when I know someone who's on Wikipedia. It's so
And
silly,
people
right?
keep changing it and it's not accurate. It's so funny.
I know, but you're there, darling. You're there. So I know someone on Wikipedia. Woo woo. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with
Thank
us. I
you,
really,
Sue.
really hope everybody gets to see your show and travel with this show. And I can't wait to see your one woman show. It's going to be awesome. Everything you do
Oh,
and touch is beautiful. Thank you.
thank you. That's so
Sally
lovely.
Mays,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Join us the next time. Thank you so much. Have a great day.